Well, we hope that we're all getting some education with that graphics and that infographics, as we have to say. And it's already in Cote d'Ivoire, the coronavirus. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning,
Yeah, sorry, I had
Walker.
to meet you with this tragic news.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's really important because, you know, we're neighbors.
Yeah.
So that test is not positive yet, as in we don't know the results of that test yet. So we're still holding on and trying to see how that comes out. But good morning, you're just tuning in. Of course, you're watching the AM show. You missed the AM news. But we're on to the newspapers. We're talking about that virus that's hit China. Started in the city of Wuhan and now spread to other countries. Still very much a big issue because there are a lot more people dying from this virus. And we will discuss it a bit more in detail. But just to remind you, there are some basic things that you have to do once you get out there. If you're coughing, for instance, you want to be careful and check in a hospital and don't give it to the next person. Remember to wash your hands under running water. That's the other instruction that you must know. Wash your hands under running water. And then we'll see how the check is going on at our airports, really, because that's one of our biggest entry points here in our country. So let's do the newspapers. Let's see the other headlines that we have, apart from that tragic news coming from the United States of America yesterday. I mean, we don't do basketball in Ghana in terms of regular updates, but there are a lot of basketball lovers.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that even if you're not into basketball, you may have heard Kobe Bryant and his death and the fact that his 13-year-old was also killed in that crash.
Very tragic.
Absolutely horrific. Yeah. All right, let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper. That's the paper that I'll begin the review with. Front page. Determining presidential election winner, votes must be over 50%. 50% plus one constitutional misrepresentation. That's according to a man who has absolute knowledge in terms of this. Dasebre Professor Oti Boateng. He's the Omanhene of the New Jabing traditional area. He's described as erroneous, a widely held view that the number of votes needed to determine a winner in the presidential election is 50% plus one. The statistician and emeritus professor said the viewpoint by many stakeholders was wrong, a constitutional misrepresentation, and mathematically incorrect. It's interesting. You might want to read on his exclusive conversation with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Also, no more permits for new cement companies. That's according to a deputy trades minister, Carlos Ahenkra. Details there on page 16. And Neoplan Ghana Limited shuts down January 31. Another heartbreaking one because they've been operating since the 1970s. And they are now completely shutting down operations in Accra and Kumasi because they say they are no longer viable. Once this happens, remember there are a good number of people who will be out of work. Details of that also in page 16. We'll see if we can touch base on some of the details. In the center spread, there's a feature on Galamsey. Let's kill this monster before it kills us. It tells it all in pictures. And you wonder if really we are making progress or we've made progress. So you can check it out in the center spread of the Daily Graphic newspaper. It's a special feature. On the back page, Keita's penalty gives Kotoko 2-1 victory over Hearts. That's the super clash. And I'm not particularly excited because, you know, my team lost.
Yeah, I was excited because
gave room to loud mouths like Roland and Co on social media.
Yeah, I was particularly excited, but
still,
around
never
all this
say
is
die.
the fact that many people went to the stadium.
Yeah,
and I had many friends who were taking shots and putting it on many of the platforms, as we always do belong to, in Kotoko jersey, etc. And because of that, I'm getting one this week myself. I'm hoping that by Friday I'll wear Kotoko jersey for the show, and then next week
and
I'll
wear
a friend of mine is one of the shareholders and directors of Inter Allies.
Okay.
So I also get an Inter Allies t-shirt. So
all right. Well, that's
Bring
nice.
back the love.
Bring back the love.
Yeah, that's a hashtag.
I don't know. Hearts. Well, never say die until the bones are rotting.
Yeah,
Absolutely
definitely.
sticking with that.
Yeah.
But it's not exciting when you're on the losing side.
Well, they have the pedigree and history in our football, so what do we say? We have to love them.
Yeah. Let's do the Finder newspaper. Front page of the Finder, economic outlook positive. Moody's says policies bearing fruits. And you know, that's one that the government is going to hold on strongly. And this is like in your face, critics. Also, over 300 ambulances staff to be deployed tomorrow. Dr. Siama denies any wrongdoing in banking crisis. Remember, the news last week was the fact that the police was looking for him. He's a deputy governor of the bank. Was a deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, together with Dr. Kwabena Dufour. Police said they were looking for them for questioning, for them to answer, and more like they were at large. Well, he sent a statement. And details of that, we'll probably get into a bit of that later on here on the show for you. There are other stories in the Finder newspaper that you can check out, but straight away to the Daily Dispatch. Front page of the Dispatch, countdown to NPP's primaries. Dakua Freda to battle Ahmed in Okaikwe South. J. Kufuor 1972 coup. Ajinasari fasts for Ghana against China's coronavirus. Breakdown of population in Greater Accra and central regions in the Daily Dispatch. That's how it looks by way of headlines in the paper today. Okay, the Daily Statesman front page, CPP executive on EC biometric voting and resistance. Positive progress, economy hits a record best. Moody's gives Ghana its most upbeat investor rating in a decade. Preacher of peace, a sober ACP Agojos Damascus conversion. Well, that's how they decide to couch what he had to put on Facebook, in particular after his release. He's on bail actually, and he took to Facebook to thank the people who have been with him all through his arrest. And I think he's been in custody for about 3 months. It's been about 3 months now. So he was just saying thank you, and also trying to tell people that he couldn't have done what he's accused to have done. He couldn't have done it. Trying to bring back, trace where he's been, and particularly he recounts the fact that he's been on peacekeeping missions in some war-torn countries, and the fact that he loves Ghana, and the last thing he would do is to want to hurt the country.
It's a very emotive or emotional statement, if you tend to interpret or read meaning into his statement. And I think that he largely met, his objective was largely met, if that was anything to go by. Well, the court will make their decision.
Yeah, but he also acknowledges that it's not over, because this is not the main battle really. The Ghanaian Observer, though, front page, Ghana's economic at all-time best in a decade, according to Moody's. Chief Imam Lord Akufo-Addo's free SHS policy give Akufo-Addo 4 more years. Nana Mampoma appeals to Ghanaians, and boost for emergency health care as government deploys over 300 ambulances, EMT drivers and support staff Tuesday. Last newspaper for me is the Economic Times, and on the front page of the paper, only 6 out of 24 funds and trusts have fund managers. Also, monetary policy improves as Treasury bills lending rates drop by 9.3% and 3.4%. What does that mean, Roland?
Well, it just basically the rates for T-bills, and but so the monetary
it's not looking good.
No. T-bills basically is just government instruments.
Exactly, but that's not looking good, right?
No, for if you're an investor, if you are an investor.
If I am investing in that, then that doesn't look good for me, right?
Yeah, for you as a normal investor.
Do you know why I asked that? Because that's, for me, as somebody who doesn't take a lot of risk with my money, that's like my go-to place. Exactly.
Yes, and if you roll back 2016, 2015, 2014, thereabout, the government was going to the local market a lot to borrow. And as a result of that, the TB rates were always going up because that was the safest also for the banks. But ultimately, while we will cash in as investors and consumers, etc., but it also meant that government was crowding out the private sector or any other entity or individual who was a main player in the monetary industry. And that also meant that industry that would need facilities would have to borrow at a very high rate ultimately, or take that sort of cut, because it had a correlation or a trickle-down effect on what the policy rates was or were ultimately, and the cost of borrowing ultimately also on the domestic markets. I think this is good, because then
the fact that there's a drop,
yes, it means that you and I can go and borrow ultimately when it comes to you getting access to credit or some facility for other ventures beyond just your domestic consumption. And I think that it also lends credence to how government has been able to manage the fiscals in a better way than we had seen 4 years ago, or let's say 5 years ago. And that is why the government is always getting the pat on the back for managing the macro level of the economy. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when an investor is outside, somewhere in the Middle East or somewhere in Europe and in America, they look at those first before they come in country to come and experience the liquidity position of the country.
Well, still an election year. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Can you move on?
What usually we shoot this up is when we overrun the budget, or perhaps we don't do too well and manage the forex and all that. So, all right, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, let's first go to the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide has on the front page, and this is big news for government. But if you're Ghanaian, you're somebody who is a great player in the industry or in manufacturing, this is also good in attracting investors or getting inflows into your business from outside. Ghana's economy gets positive rating. And then we also do have an attack picture of the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. There's an Alhaji before the Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. Nana Odo's ambulances tomorrow is on Tuesday. All right. Osafumafu also bounces Auditor General. Yeah. NDC versus EC. Plan B activated after failed demonstrations. This is captured by the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide is there. Now we have the back page being the back page being all related to sports, being related to sports throughout. Kotoko silence Hearts in a crowd. A well-struck late penalty kick by Naby Keita handed Asante Kotoko all the points and bragging rights when they clashed with their bitter rivals in a crowd Sunday. Tottenham to profit from Pochettino, and then entry left Captain One Golf. Did they want to say Captain? Okay, Captain One, it says. Now let's go to the Ghanaian Times. The Ghanaian Times has on the front page, big boost for healthcare service. As President distributes 307 ambulances to some 275 constituencies. That's on Tuesday, tomorrow. Up there we have renewed chieftaincy dispute in Batinga. 1 killed, 6 injured. Meanwhile, the police have arrested 5, as they also record that 10 houses were on fire. Ghana Health Service calls for forensic probe into conduct of internal audit director. We're talking about the internal audit director of the service, and Mr. Kwabna Hemeng Intiamwa. Government winning anti-corruption fines, Information Minister tells critics. And then the Food and Agriculture Organization is warning of locust invasion in northern part of Ghana. Already it's been around east of Africa, and you know, once the weather changes, ultimately, it's a precaution that we need to take. I hope that we're collaborating effectively to ensure that at least we take the measures as we should. Let's go to the back page. Still all sports, and of course, Kotoko will be dominating. They had a late penalty, winning that game against Hasselhoff, and this is how the table is. On 14 points is Chelsea, followed closely by Aduana and Midiema, all with 13 points, and Kotoko is in 4th with 12 points, and Hearts a cry. Send me Kayo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. Hasselhoff 12. Okay, so we had other scorelines as well. Benedict also will bring you the latest updates when he comes to give us the latest sports news we have. Now let's go to the Go Street business. That's on the front page. Financial stocks lead stock market rebound. We also do have 1.2 trillion global MICE market still eluding Ghana. And the MICE market is basically meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. Yeah, we tend to like the acronyms, don't we? Beneficial ownership implementation begins. We're talking news in relation to the Registrar General Department. Okay. The Today newspaper has on the front page, land guards on rampage at Bitchley, Obeyeye. Bitchley is on the Afienya Road. I know that very well. Has an attached picture of James Opombueno, IGP. I don't know why. We tend to, okay, but it's there, front page of the Today newspaper. CPI scores. We are disappointed. PPP to Nana. An attached picture is one of Dr. Ni Alote Bruhamon. He is the chairman for the Progressive People's Party. Saboteurs of DVLA boss exposed. Kwesia Jemimbusia, CEO of DVLA, has his picture on the front page attached to the story. Apparently, he has saboteurs. They are getting back at him, according to the story. Ghana. Okay.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. Let's do myjoyonline.com. But whilst we get ready to do that, I wanted to touch on the 2 stories on page 16. One on no more permits for new cement companies. It says the Ministry of Trade and Industry has placed a ban on the issuance of permits to companies that want to set up a cement processing plant in the country. It has also taken steps to halt the importation of the products as part of measures to protect and encourage the growth of existing cement processing companies. And that's all according to a Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Carlos Ahenkra, speaking at the Customer Awards dinner of a cement manufacturer. On Friday, Mr. Ahenkra observed that the temporary ban and the restrictions on imports were meant to support the current 8 cement manufacturers that operated in unfair competitions. And then this story about the Neoplan Ghana Limited, one of the country's surviving coach manufacturing businesses in the 1970s, has announced a total shutdown on Friday, January 31, because it is no longer viable. A memo to all staff of the company in Accra and Kumasi announcing the closure of the company, which was established in December 12, 1974, cites the lack of contracts and recurring monthly losses as reason for the shutdown. The company said the last time it was given a government contract was in 2002, Roland, which ended in 2010 and saw the production of some 450 DAF and VDL buses for the Metromass Transit Limited. The job losses, I think that's where my interest is. The Neoplan Ghana Managing Director indicated that when the company closed down on Friday, about 100 workers, who are the remaining staff after pruning over the years, would lose their jobs. At the peak of the production, the permanent workers of the company were about 800.
Wow.
It's sad.
All right, we have to do myjoyonline.com quickly, at least for a minute, before we transition to sports. Benedict also standing by to have some interaction with us. Tell us latest sports. And Mama V, we have
myjoyonline.com. First person in Africa tested for the virus in Cote d'Ivoire. Okay, so that's the latest on this. This was in the statement on Sunday. So we'll deal with this matter and then look at our main entry point as well and how we're checking. It's election year. Find civilized way of dealing with squatters. MP tells Tema West Assembly. Subtly a bit controversial. I don't know. Oh, and that's the story. Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter killed in California helicopter crash, and tribute pouring in from all quarters, you know, like everywhere really, because of how huge this man was, and he was only 41.
Yeah.
Only 41.
Yeah.
I listened to a sound bite where he talks about the fact that life is short, and I think this is when he retired. How life is short and you have to, enjoy it and that kind of stuff. Hearts vs Kotoko Super Clash in pitches. It wasn't so much of a painful loss, was it? I'm not sure. But Benedict is here. He's got lots of sports and stories to share with us. Corruption ranking, government's efforts at fighting corruption paying off, according to Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma. Also on our page this morning. Government reaffirms decision to commission ambulances on January 28th. Yeah?
Tomorrow.
Yeah. They're doing what they wanted to do anyway. Yeah.